are welcome aboard. Once you have located your seat, we ask you to please step out of the aisle.
What's up and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to show off the stuff that I've been working on for the past couple of months. This morning we were having a conversation in my Discord chat where a couple of people were interested in how to set up their VTuber models. I figured why not just show it all off here on video? It'll really avoid some people having to take a couple of months like I did to learn some of these topics that have to do with animation and setting up your VRM models. I figured for me it took probably a couple months to learn because I did have some background in animation and 3D design, but not a lot at all. Anyway, nowadays we have so many tutorials online that it makes it a lot easier for us to just pick up anything that we're interested in. So when I began just looking back into game engines and what's possible with them, I started by checking out all of those tutorials that had me pretty much building Unreal from source, which yeah, I'm pretty much glad that I learned because it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while anyway, but it was kind of a waste of time when that information kind of got me stuck for a couple weeks on things. I looked all over online at the time and it was just very hard for me to find the answers that I was looking for because I didn't really know the right questions to ask. Pretty much this video will be kind of long-winded. I'm gonna dive into the details of what I learned, and hopefully this will help somebody else who's stuck trying to set this stuff up. And better yet, there will be more people in the space to make friends with and learn from with this technology. So how do you get your own avatar to work on, and what apps are you gonna need? Well, first I'll go through the ones that I think are necessary for you to have, and then I'll jump into other things that you can look into that may help. So some of the apps that you're definitely gonna need to download are gonna be Blender and Unity, or Unreal, depending on which one you want to go with. VSeeFace, all the SDKs and plugins that I'm going to mention, Spout, NDI, Discord's good to have, Steam, if you don't already have Steam, download that because there's a couple cool VTuber apps and stuff that you can download on there, like Animaze, VRoidStudio is another good one. There's also apps online like NiArt Tracker, 3D Post Tracker, and a couple other ones that I'll point out, and I'll show you all of these in a little bit more detail and why they would be used over another. As far as hardware, basically you would just need a webcam, microphone so that I could pick up your audio, but if you want to get more detailed with mouth movements and hand movements, stuff like this, and like, you know, you are going to need different hardware. So a cell phone that has a true depth camera, pretty much iPhones, I think the XR, which is what I'm using, and above, like maybe the 10 or 11 iPhones and above have the true depth camera, and also some of the iPads do too, but you'll have to look that up on your own to really know. There's also the Leap Motion for hand tracking, there's mocap bodysuits, there's even ways that you could do it if you have Vive trackers. Those are pretty much cameras that you'll set up around in your room, and then they'll watch you and everything you do, every movement you make. Other things that you'll need to understand: the OSC and BMC protocols, how they work, why you're using them, and how to find out the issues you're having. VRM and FBX files, how to work with them, how ports work on your network. ARKit is good to understand. That's how you're going to get the mouth movements and eye movement thing working. I'll show you in each app the things I got stuck on online and where I had the most trouble. If you guys have any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments below. I can dive deeper. I'm sure you guys are probably sick of the term Metaverse. Whether you like it or not, it's coming. Well, it's already here. Most people just aren't really a part of it yet. This is like back when I first joined Facebook and YouTube. Tom did. MySpace was being poorly managed. Friendster died a long time ago, and here I was just trying to sign up to Facebook with my old college email, but no one I knew was really on there yet, not for a couple of years anyway. I mention all that because, well, for me, learning all this stuff opened up a lot of other opportunities in the future. If you're interested in VR or 3D design or just looking to develop in-game engines, well, good on you. If people are really living in metaverses, then you'll be able to help create worlds or assets for people and actually get paid doing it from home on your own free time. I call that a win-win. So I see it as like being early adopters of HTML when everybody just needed a website. Samsung already has an asset store in Decentraland, and there's other ones coming about like Blocktopia that are going to be released that just have really big names that are affiliated with them. You see where I'm going with all this, right? Learning how to build this stuff now, it may be a good thing. That's what you're into anyway. So let's check out some of the apps that you'll need to download to get started working on your avatars. So the first app that I would recommend downloading is Blender. This is the app where you'll pretty much set up everything for your movements with like your mouth and the way your avatar looks if you want to change colors and stuff like that. And then the next thing you're going to need to set up is one of the gaming engines. Unity is going to be a lot easier for you to probably find some information on, and with Unreal Engine, you do have to learn some of the stuff with blue scripting, which might take you a little bit longer if you don't have any understanding of programming whatsoever. It's a little bit more of an advanced setup with something like Unreal, but with Unity, I found it to be a lot faster to get everything set up and to find information on online. When you go with something like Unreal, you're going to get way better quality and resolution and everything. Things are just going to look more real. So it really depends on what kind of look you're going for. So this version here of 2019.4.31F1, whatever, it just seemed to work better for everything because of the compatibility with the plugins and everything that you're going to need to put in there. I know it seems like you should just download the latest version and use that. Same thing goes for Unreal. You're going to want to use the version that these plugins are all set up for, otherwise you're going to have issues. Unreal Engine was the other one that I mentioned, so I'm going to show it here, but basically you just go to their website, you can download it too. These are all free, both of these gaming engines, and there are other gaming engines that you can use as well. I've seen other people mention the use of other ones, but there's not as much information for them, so unless you have previous knowledge of them, again, it's going to be hard for you to find what you need. And once you have the gaming engine and Blender, you can pretty much start looking into how you want to set up your avatar. For me, I went with a Ready Player Me avatar. So check this out. This was a 3D render that I did of my face a long time ago in 3ds Max. And I took the file for this, which is pretty much my face mapped out for a 3D model. And I used that to create the face that you see on the Ready Player Me. So basically when you log in, you'll see this. You get to pick what you want. You can continue without a photo or take a photo, or you can just pick a file. So let's do that. What? Wait. What? What? Maybe we'll do that later. Okay, so you have a player and you can go ahead and spend the rest of your day designing it or whatever you want to do. Once you're done, there we go. Then you can go right over here to My Avatars and you can download this GLB file. And then I'm just going to go ahead and open up Blender. And there's two different plugins that you're going to want to really get for Blender. Because I just set up a folder on my hard drive. One for where I'm going to install all my programs, another one where I'm going to put in all my plugins and all the extra stuff like that. And then I have an extra folder that's going to be where all my avatars live. Those are probably the three most important ones that you're going to need. Sorry, my fingers don't know how to count. So when we go here into my plugins folder for Blender, the ones that are important for me to get the movement stuff working and to be able to import your VRM, GLB, FBX files, these are the ones you're going to need. The VRM plugin for Blender, the Leap if you have that as a device, the Add Routes one, that's a good one to have. And in Blender, the way for you to install plugins, it's pretty easy. Once you have the zip file downloaded, you don't actually have to unzip it. You can just install it with the zip for most of them. So like you would just go to install plugins and then find it, add it, install, and then you should see it pop up here and it'll ask if you want to actually activate it. So you can see here, I already have it activated on mine, but when you install it, you'll have to make sure that that checkbox is enabled. Once you have your plugins installed, you can hit the N key and it'll open up that little thing on the side there, and you'll see this thing here that's got VRM. That's going to have all the tools you pretty much need to set everything up from here. So I'm going to go ahead and import that avatar file that we just downloaded. Now, the reason why I chose the Ready Player Me one, it already has a lot of the things set up for like VRChat and for Animaze. So it's pretty easy to get started with this one. You don't need to do like a bunch of custom setups, and you'll at least get started with an avatar that looks the way you want it to. You're going to notice that, well, it's all white. In Blender, you have to hit this button up here. That'll change the way that your avatar is being rendered. And you can look up other tutorials to get used to the controls in Blender and how to move in 3D space. Basically, there are a lot of shortcuts you're going to want to learn. So you're going to want to type in some information. You can stretch this out, and this is the thumbnail that'll show up for you whenever you go to load your avatar anywhere. This is useful to have once you have a bunch of different avatars. You can just look at the thumbnail and know the difference between them. But I would also suggest titling them in such a way that's pretty descriptive, because I had a problem in the beginning where I just named all the avatars Dro-Avatar, whatever. Couldn't tell the difference between them whenever I loaded them in the app. I'll show you that later, but for now, let me just explain some of this. Author, you just put your name there, and version would be the version of the avatar. Go down the list here, and you'll see that none of the bones are connected here for the avatar. You can go ahead and manually start to select what's what. So like your head is gonna be called head, but there's no naming convention with all this stuff. So you'll find that sometimes you'll get an avatar with a name that's different than another, and you'll have to go in and try to find what it's called. Most of the time, everything's going to be called something pretty similar, and you'll see sometimes there's like a L instead of the word left, or a R instead of right, stuff like that. That's a little bit more detailed that I do want to explain because it caused me issues, and it's something you need to note. Anyway, once you have all of your bones here selected, what I would suggest you do right away is save it. Every time I went to go make a new change, or I had a problem with my avatar and I had to redo this, it took me a while. And finally I decided, why not just save a file that has all of the info in it, and then you can just load it whenever you need it. Once I have everything loaded in here, you just go in here and click this save button and you save the file somewhere. Okay, so I load in the file and ta-da, look, everything's loaded in there for me. So now I don't have to go back in and manually select all of these. So what this plugin is doing is it's basically for you to map everything so that it works correctly wherever you're going to open up this avatar, whether it be in Unity, Unreal, in VRChat, whatever you decide to do with it. In order for these avatars to work and move correctly, you have to know what these systems are asking for and talking to in order to get the movements right, because there, like I said, there's no actual convention for everything and how it's named or set up. If you go to like Animaze, for example, or VSeeFace, or VRoidStudio, you might see a bunch of differences. So keep an eye on that, and whenever you get stuck and some movements aren't working, you're going to have to try to debug by finding out what bone names that app's looking for, what blend shapes and all that. So this plugin will help you get everything at least connected and named correctly. And I don't usually mess with these settings down here, but this is where you'll change like where your eyes are looking and your head's turning and all that. I'm not going to get into this just yet because this is a little bit more advanced. Here's the next thing that I got really confused on. In order for you to get movements that actually look pretty real, like with your mouth movement, your eyes, where you're looking, the blend shapes actually make a big difference in how realistic everything moves. In Blender, you have the ability to set up what's called shape keys. When you click on an avatar, there was this huge confusion for me on how the blend shapes and shape keys work in VSeeFace. I was having a lot of problems with my models like I showed in the beginning where things were going a little bit hectic. One that had the eyes popping out, I had another that wouldn't move correctly, and I didn't understand what was causing all these problems. I finally got help in their Discord and made a lot more sense once it was explained to me correctly. So I thought in Blender, shape keys were the same thing as blend shapes. So, because when you open up your avatar in something like Unity, you'll see all of the blend shapes listed at the top. You'll have access to them and everything kind of works. And since I was jumping around from app to app, some things were working, some things weren't. I didn't understand why. So what you need to understand about shape keys and blend shapes is that if you want your avatar talking and moving like this using the actual AR kit, which is necessary for you to actually have the iPhone with the camera I mentioned, the true depth camera, if you have that, then you can use AR kit, which tracks your movements way better and look way more realistic than something like just using a webcam. Now, if you look at my video that I did right before this one, it was a video talking about advanced OBS stuff, and I didn't actually use my phone with the true depth camera and AR kit for my mouth movements. And there's this thing called, I think it's pronounced Vismes or Vismes. Okay, fine. I don't know how to pronounce it. When you go to the bottom of all of these Shapekeys set up here, you'll see these, right? So these are like the A-E-I-O-U's and different mouth movements you might make for different pronunciations. Like if you're going to say something with F, you'll be like, right? Your lip moves differently depending on what you're pronouncing. So when we start activating some of these, you'll see kind of the difference between them. VSeeFace is going to use these whenever you're trying to use an audio sync. And if you have audio playing and you tell VSeeFace to use your audio source as your microphone, your avatar will basically start moving its mouth according to these. It won't look the same as if you're using the true depth camera with the AR kit like this. So if you go back to that video, you'll see how the mouth is moving to the audio. It's a bit different. It doesn't match perfectly and there are some issues with it. There are ways to even make it better, but it takes some work. So if I take this avatar right now and I save it out as a VRM, okay, so move this out of the way and we'll put her here so you can see some of the issues we're having. When I put my hands out with the leap, look, my hands are all backwards and weird. The motion's all weird. I mean, my head's moving okay. I think, yeah, forward and backward movements are all right. My hands are a little weird though, and my mouth's not moving. My eyes aren't blinking. There's definitely some things that need to be fixed right away. Eye movements are actually working. Wow, and you see how the lighting's working too? Pretty cool, right? You can actually move the lighting around in VSeeFace. There's a way you just like hold down the control button and check it out. You can change the lighting. So if you have like a screen behind you with a game, you can kind of make it look like there's light hitting you from it or whatever you want to do. That's already built into VSeeFace. Like I said, this thing already has some pretty cool stuff. So let me load back in my avatar because this is getting weird. We never actually set up the blend shape groups. That's really important if you want to get the AR kit stuff working and all those shape keys that are already built into your avatar. You can either click here and set them up manually. Like bind, for example, go in here, you would choose the part of the avatar that has the blend shapes you want. I blink left, I blink right. There we go. And then we want to make sure that this weight is at 1. This is what'll tell it to go from no movement to the full movement that you added here. So from no blink to full blink. And if there's some sort of motion with either your mouth or your eyes or whatever that your avatar is doing that's way too much, it's a little over exaggerated and you want to take it down a bit, you would take that down from 1 to like maybe 0.8 or something a little bit lower. The amount that my mouth opens, if you wanted to actually reduce that so that when you open your mouth full way, it actually didn't open up that much, When you set up the mouth one, you would just go in here and set it up for a little bit less. I don't generally do that. I just try not to open my mouth so wide. That helps. And I did go through and manually set this up for my avatar one by one. I did a stream where I was actually working on this and it took like all day to set up. If you want to get the movements looking pretty good, it's worth setting up. It's better than setting up a custom avatar from scratch. So there's that. So let me just group all of these meshes first. And as you can see, all of it combined and joined into one actually still works pretty good. In order to combine all of these meshes, the way that Blender works, the last item you select is gonna be the one that survives. All the other ones get sucked up into that. I guess all of those can pretty much go into the body layer because they're part of the body. So let's start with that. When I go to select my last one here, then I have to bring my mouse cursor over here to the build area. And when you hit Control J, you'll see there that those layers disappear and go into the body. You'll see that all the materials pretty much got thrown in here. So you'll have the parts of like your shoes and your hair and everything as a separate material at this time. When you click over here, your shape keys are all still here, so you'll be able to set up your blend shapes. You don't need to set up these. What I do is I set up everything from here and above. So this no sneer right and everything above that, these Vismes I leave out because the app is going to automatically pick up on those based on their names. These shape keys for the AR kit and the way that they're named, they're not actually getting picked up by VSeeFace unless you set up all of these here in these blend shape groups. I'm going to go ahead and just load in my avatar so that you can see what it looks like once everything is here set up the way it should be. Set every single one of these up, and maybe there's a better way to do this. If you know, tell me. And also a quick tip, when I was going in here to set up these blend shapes and you start messing with the OSC stuff for Blender, when you start messing with that stuff, you kind of have to have these shape keys in the right order, because instead of looking for the name, those are actually looking for the ID. So like basis, which is your basic look where you're not moving at all. That's like your standard silenced look when you're not talking or moving. That will be considered ID 0, and then this will be ID 1, and then 2 is below it, 3, 4, so on. The iFace mocap app looks for those names specifically, as well as the ID of those shape keys. If they're in the wrong order, your face is going to be doing all sorts of weird movements. When you open up your mouth, your eyes may start blinking weird, or like when you blink, your mouth may move weird instead. And it's because those are out of order. For AR kit, I noticed it pretty much just looks for the name. As far as I know, it doesn't matter what order they're in. As long as you have it named correctly. It's case sensitive too, I think. So just make sure you name it exactly like you see it. And if you have any problems and you want to see what they're supposed to be called, and if maybe your avatar has something named incorrectly for AR kit, there's a lot of places with resources if you get stuck, like especially the VSeeFace site. There's a lot of things that are documented. So if you get stuck, you can kind of reference here. It shows you here like the special blend shapes it's looking for and what the name should be and all of that. As long as you're following those rules, you shouldn't have too many problems, but I just wanted to point this out. And there are websites like this, you'll see all of the different AR kit names, how they should be set up. It shows you how the eyebrows should move, for example, for brow in or up. So if you have a avatar that you're trying to set up with specific movements, this is where you would reference those. And it does have numbers up here. I would say that if you're having problems with things looking a little bit weird, check the order. Another notable mention about setting up your VRMs, you can actually save them out to have all of these extra pieces in with it. So like you could save this whole scene out as a VRM. When you have it opened up inside a VSeeFace, it'll actually work. So you'll be able to still move your arms and all that stuff like you saw in my intro. There's also another set of plugins that I got that I wanted to mention, like the Spring Bones one, and there's like a Jiggly Bones one that you can get. Like you could go on somewhere like GitHub and just find a whole bunch of different add-ons for like Blender and Unity and everything. Just be careful when you're downloading from there. But these Spring Bones and the Jiggly Bones plugins will let you do stuff like this to your avatar. Can make like your hair bounce, amongst other things. And check this out too. I saw someone posting this asking for help on the VSeeFace Discord. It's actually really cool. Check this out. So once you get this whole thing down with getting your textures and your materials and spring bones and everything's loaded correctly into your avatar, there's some really awesome ones you can create and play around with. Such cool things you could do. Mad props to the creator of this, by the way. So if you go onto their Discord, you'll see more information about who did that. Probably saw me playing around with this on stream. I was showing you guys that I could live stream in Blender. Pretty cool. I'm using the FaceCap app and it works a little bit differently. And I thought that this all worked the same and tied in together, but it doesn't. So these shape key names weren't working in the same way that ARKit 1 does. But if you want to find out more information about how all of this stuff works, this is the other plugin that I was mentioning that you can download for Blender. It's called Add Routes. So I'll show you how that works. When you go to the website, you can go here to the Add Routes section and just download it. And this zip file, you just save it and load it in just like I showed you. Just go here, here, and you just check that box there for Add Routes. You'll get these two different areas that were set up. First part here is where you'll set up your port numbers. On the iPhone app, you're gonna have to choose the port number you're gonna use. So you have to make sure that your cell phone is on the same network as your computer. So if you had your cell phone working like on a cell phone tower and you weren't connected to the Wi-Fi, you're probably not going to be able to get this to work properly. So just make sure you're on the same network. Choose the port number you want to use. It doesn't have to be whatever the default one is there. You just some 4 numbers that aren't being used and that should work. So what's going to happen when you hit for the app to connect to your computer is it's going to start sending all of these signals to your computer. Let me show you what that looks like. Here are all of the commands that are being sent over from that FaceCap app. And you can see here that there's an address here and then there's some numbers. So I'm going to show you what these are all referencing, and this will help you get this set up if you're trying to use the OSC protocol and commands to make this work. You'll see here on their website, it shows you the way that everything should be named and the number of the order they should be in. So this is what I was referring to. If it says _L versus the word left, it actually makes a difference of whether or not those movements are going to be symmetrical with the other side. So for example, if you had blink left versus L, it will also affect the other side. So you see up here, it says the naming convention for left and right indicate a direction in non-symmetrical shapes. L and R are going to indicate the symmetrical shapes that affect both sides. You can play around with that by renaming some of these if you need to, but definitely they need to be in the right order to work. In their documentation, you'll also notice here that there are some addresses that are being sent. This is what we were seeing on these commands. So this is just the app that I found on GitHub that you install with NPM. It allows you to see what's coming in through OSC protocol. So I basically told it to follow that port 9040 that I was using to send the data through. And you could see here, these are the addresses. So what do they stand for? If you go back to their site, you'll see HT is for the position of the head. The rotation in degrees is that. And the way that you set these up is, first of all, I would suggest just going online and looking up the video that they did about this. It gives a full explanation on how to set it up so that I don't have to do it. But the basics of it is when you go back into Blender, you'll have to set up these routes here on this tab. When you have the path set up this way with the variable in there, it'll automatically increment. So it's going to be replacing it for each of the 52 shape keys. You can copy the settings that I have here, like W, which again is going to be the blend shape parameters. So the W stands for the connection here between all of the blend shapes. And when you put 52, you're referencing the first 52. Not including 0, which is your bases. Anyway, once you have everything set up, you could set up empties like I did, for example. So these are empties. Those are actually holding my locations and rotations inside Blender, basically going to be happening here on this little star looking thing. So what I do is I end up connecting the movements from this using drivers in Blender. So you'll see here some of these are connected. So like if I'm blinking or rotating my head or something like that, there's other tutorials that are online about how to use OSC, and if you're just looking to get some motion in Blender because you're trying to animate your avatar, probably set up some pretty cool things with this, considering it's all real time with Eevee now. Anyway, this is OSC working inside Blender. If your avatar is set up to have the blend shapes for the OSC to work, I would suggest not using that in VSeeFace as your main avatar. I was under the impression you can just set everything up under one avatar, and you kind of can. Your file's just going to get heavier and heavier the more you add to it. So sometimes it's better to just have a separate avatar depending on where you're going to use it. The movements on the avatar inside Blender are still pretty good too when you're using OSC. And you can see here on the side all of those shape keys actually working. Blender definitely isn't made for live streaming, so you're going to have issues with lagging sometimes or things not working correctly. It uses a lot of resources. It's not really supposed to be used this way, but it works, so maybe you can do some cool stuff with it. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you ever get stuck with like weird movements on your face and you want to reset back to the normal silent faces look, down here you have this little X, basically just resets your face. What else should I show? There was something else I wanted to show here on Blender too. If you guys feel like you want a more in-depth explanation about how the OSC works in Blender like this, just let me know in the Discord and I'll go ahead and do a separate video on that, because in order to set this up, probably gonna have to be its own video. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that and learning kind of how I set this avatar up to be moving this way. I've been having a lot of fun learning about not only the gaming engine side of things, but animation once again. I hope you guys who are interested in this stuff can come join the Discord if you're not already a part of it. I'm really trying to build like a new community of people who can come in there so that we can either help each other out or learn from each other. I think you guys will enjoy it. And if you have any suggestions or questions, let me know down in the comment section below. I feel like that's probably enough to get you started. We'll leave it there, and I'll see you guys on the next one.